My daughter was standing on the porch of a cabin I had never been to, holding a paper plate with one slice of cake on it, wearing a pink dress with a small tear along the hem that someone had tried to pin back together. There were 11 kids behind her. There were 11 parents. There were 14 folding chairs. One of them had a sign taped to the back that read Hyraa'S, turning 7 in neat stick letters. The kind a 6-year-old prints when she is proud of her own name. I had not been invited. Hyraa'S saw my truck pull in. She put the plate down without looking back. She ran. She ran across the gravel, in her pink shoes, arms wide, no hesitation, no half-second pause to look at whoever was standing on the porch next to her. She ran straight for me and held on like I was the only solid thing in the world she had left that day. My sister Lavaiza was standing with her hands folded. Lavaiza. Who had organized this party? Who had called my mother to ask for my mother's cake recipe? Who had driven an hour to pick up the balloons from the party store in Toccoa? Who had texted my cousin Tasha to ask what flavor Hyraa'S liked best this year? Lavaiza had not texted me. I picked Hyraa'S up. She buried her face in my neck. Her hair smelled like vanilla and like the cheap drugstore shampoo I had been buying for her since she was 3 because it was the only one that did not make her scratch. Happy birthday, baby. Daddy. She said it like a question and an answer at the same time. Like she was confirming that I was real and that real was good enough for today. I want to introduce you to my friends. In a minute, sweetheart. I looked at Lavaiza. Lavaiza looked at her shoes. She looked at her shoes for a long time. My name is Marcus Hale. I am 38 years old. I run a small framing crew out of a shop behind my mother's house in Clayton, Georgia. 3 trucks. 8 guys. Mostly residential, driveways up into the nicer parts of Cashiers and Highlands when the work is there. I am not rich. I am not broke. I am the kind of man who makes his money standing up and comes home with his hands swollen by Wednesday and a half-inch of sawdust still caught in the lines of his knuckles on Friday. I have a daughter named Hyraa'S Hale. She was born on a Tuesday in August 7 years ago. I have been in her life every single day since. Every single one. I have not missed a meal. I have not missed a bath. I have not missed a single school drop-off since she was tall enough to climb into my truck on her own. And last Saturday at 2:17 in the afternoon, I walked into a birthday party that nobody in my family thought was mine to attend. Including my sister. Before I get to the next 90 minutes at the party, I want to take you back. Because the way my family came to the decision that a father did not need to be in the room for his own daughter's 7th birthday, that story did not happen that morning. That story took 5 years to build. And by the time it was built, even the people who built it could not remember what they had actually started with. I am going to walk you through it slowly because the slow parts are where the actual hurt is. The slow parts are where a man finds out what his people think of him when they think he cannot hear. I should start with the divorce. Hyraa'S mother is named Candace. We were married in 2017. We split in 2019. The paperwork took 9 months and a judge and one long afternoon in front of a mediator who kept telling us to breathe like we were in a yoga class and not in a courtroom where we were deciding who got to put our daughter to bed on a Tuesday. We had been together for 6 years. We had been trying for longer than that. Hyraa'S was the thing that almost made us work. Children do that sometimes. They hold a family together long enough for it to harden into a shape. And then one morning the shape does not hold anymore. Candace got full custody in the agreement I signed. I do not pretend that part is simple. I signed a piece of paper that said she would be the custodial parent and I would be the non-custodial parent. I did that because my attorney at the time told me that fighting it would cost more than I had. And I believed him. I had been saving to open the shop. I had 2 guys depending on me for weekly work. I had a truck payment. I had a daughter I loved more than I had ever loved anything on this earth, and a piece of paper that said I would see her every other weekend and every Wednesday for dinner. I will tell you what that felt like. It felt like being told you are allowed to love your own child on a schedule. I will never get that sentence out of my mouth without my voice dipping. I do not care how many years go by. I will be 70 years old and some young man will be telling me a custody story at a bar and I will feel my chest do something I cannot name. But I did not fight it. I signed. I went home. I picked up my phone and I called my sister. Lavaiza picked up on the second ring. Marcus. Hey Lava, I need to talk to you about something. I told her about the agreement. I told her about every other weekend. I told her about Wednesdays. She did not say I am sorry, Marcus. She did not say I cannot believe this. She did not say the things a sister usually says when her brother tells her something has just been taken from him. She said, well, what did you expect? I was quiet for a long time. What do you mean what did you expect? I mean, she said, you spent 3 years doing whatever you wanted. You missed her book fair. You missed the parent night at her preschool. You came home late 6 nights a week. You expected Candace to just stay there and wait around forever while you figured out whether you actually wanted a family or not. I want to pause on that. Because what Lavaiza was describing as what happened during my marriage was not what happened. But it was what my family had decided to remember about what happened. And in families, what everybody decides to remember becomes what happened. Even when it is wrong. Even when it is a story built on half information and bad feelings and somebody else's version of who you are. I worked long hours because I was building the shop. I missed the book fair because a man had hired me and his driveway was a once-a-year job and I needed that job more than I needed to sit in a plastic chair and pretend to enjoy finger painting. I missed parent night because Candace had gotten the date wrong and sent it to me the morning of the event. None of that mattered. Lavaiza had her version. Everybody had their version. And it was the version my mother had. And it was the version my Aunt Diane had. And it was the version my cousin Tasha had. And by the time the divorce was signed, the version of Marcus Hale that lived inside my own family looked nothing like the man who actually lived inside my body. That was 2019. I want to skip ahead now. Not because the years in between do not matter. They matter. They mattered every Wednesday at 6 when I picked Hyra up from her mother's house on the corner of East Savannah Avenue and Boone Drive. They mattered every other Sunday morning when I would get her at 9 and have her back at 7. They mattered every single time she fell asleep in my truck on the drive home from somewhere and I would sit in the driveway with the engine off for 4 minutes longer than I needed to because I was not ready to put her down. But if I told you every Wednesday I would never get to today's story. So let me give you the cleaned up version. For 5 years, I worked. I built the shop from 2 trucks and a folding card table to what it is now, 3 trucks, 8 guys, a small office above a mechanic's bay, a phone that rings, customers who call back. I dated. Not a lot. Not well. I dated a nurse named Megan for 10 months and we split because she wanted somebody with a 401k and I wanted somebody who liked the way I said the word August. I did not drink. I did not mother anybody else. I did not move to a different town. I did not vanish. I showed up. Every time. 5 years of every time. I want to say that clearly because it matters to what happened this week. Every single Wednesday. Every other weekend. Every book fair. Every parent night. Every school picture day. Every Christmas Eve. Every Easter egg hunt. Every single one. Hyra's mother Candace and I tolerate each other now. We are not friends. We are not enemies. We are 2 people who figured out a long time ago that the only reason we still have to have a conversation once a week is because there is a 7-year-old in both of our lives who did not ask to be in the middle of anything. We coordinate. We hand off. We text short. I will tell you something else. In the 5 years since the divorce I have never once talked bad about Candace in front of Hyra. Not once. Not when Candace was late dropping her off. Not when she changed a weekend at the last minute. Not when she forgot the doctor's appointment I had already taken off work for. Not once. Because Hyra is 7 years old and her mother is half of who Hyra is, and if I poisoned that, I would be losing the girl I had spent every single Wednesday earning. Now I want to talk about Lavaiza. Lavaiza is 32. She is 2 years younger than me. She works at the bank in town, the one on the square. She has been there for 9 years. She is engaged to a man named Carlton who does something with insurance and who has not yet learned that you do not talk about my daughter in front of me like she is a topic and not a person. Lavaiza and I have always been close. I want to be clear about that. We were close growing up. She used to come into my room in the mornings in our old house on Old Highway 441 and ask me what I was dreaming about because she genuinely believed I was dreaming about something interesting and not, as was normally the case, a math test. When Hyra was born, Lavaiza was the first person at the hospital other than Candace's mother. She got there at 4:11 in the morning. She brought a stuffed rabbit that she had sewn herself at the kitchen table out of fabric she had picked up at the Walmart in Cornelia because she did not want to buy a stuffed rabbit. She wanted to make one. That is who Lavaiza is. That has always been who Lavaiza is. When the divorce happened, Lavaiza disappeared. Not into a fight. Not into an argument. Just quietly. The way people disappear when they have decided a side. She sent me a text a week after the agreement was signed that said, "Let me know if you need a place to crash this weekend." I did not reply for 2 days because I was on a job in Franklin. When I finally did reply, 4 days later, she sent back a thumbs up, and that was the last real conversation we had for almost a year. I am telling you this because I want you to understand where Lavaiza was when the divorce happened. She was not on my side. She was not in the middle. She was somewhere else. Probably with our mother. Probably with Candace's mother. Probably in the version of the story that the women in my family had decided was the truth. A year later, when Hyra was 4, Lavaiza started coming around again. Not often. Not for the long Sunday dinners we used to have. Not for the 4th of July at my mother's. But she would text me pictures of Hyra at random. She would send me screenshots of funny things Hyra said at our mother's house. She would text me the second Tuesday of every month and ask me if I wanted to come by her place for dinner because Carlton was trying a new recipe. I tried to take those invitations. Most of them I did take. I am not a man who holds a grudge against the family he came out of. I grew up in a house on the dirt road that runs behind the old IGA. My father died young. My mother worked 2 jobs. Lavaiza is what is left of all of that. You do not get to choose your sister the way you choose a friend. But there was a problem. And the problem is this. Lavaiza had decided that I was not raising Hyra the right way. She never said that out loud. People like Lavaiza do not say things out loud. They say things by who they do not invite. They say things by not driving 30 minutes to look at the tree house I built Hyra in August. They say things by not showing up to the recitals at Tallulah Falls Elementary that they absolutely knew about because they follow the school Facebook page. They say things by not texting a single picture back when I send them a photo of Hyra's report card. Lavaiza had decided something. Lavaiza had decided that I was not a fit enough father to be a real one. And the fact that I was not a real one to her became the fact that I was not a real one to most of the family. And the family in our town is small enough that it did not take long. I am going to give you 3 small examples. 1. Last April when Hyra turned 6, Lavaiza threw her a small party at my mother's house. 6 kids. A sheet cake from the Publix bakery. Pink balloons. Hyra had a great day. Candace came. Candace's mother came. Carlton came. My Aunt Diane came. 4 of the women from Candace's book club came. I was invited. Of course I was invited. I am her father. But I was not told about it until the morning of. I got a call from my mother at 9:14 a.m. on a Saturday while I was at the supply yard in Toccoa. "Marcus," she said, "we are doing Hyraa'S party at 1. Okay. I will be there." I was there. I brought Hyra'a a small bluebird pin she had been asking me for since December. She pinned it on her dress the moment I gave it to her and did not take it off again for the rest of the day. She showed it to every adult in the room. Including people she did not know. Including Candace's mother. I want you to remember that detail. The bluebird pin. Because last Saturday, on Hyraa'S 7th birthday, she wore that same pin on the shoulder of her pink dress. Even though the dress was a different dress. Even though a year had passed. Because she liked the pin. Because I gave it to her. Because in her little brain, the pin and the party and her father are the same category. 2. In July, Hyra'a started first grade. First grade is a real deal. You go to a different building. You get a backpack. You get a teacher with a real last name. You get a desk. My mother offered to take Hyra'a to the first day of school for me because I had a job that morning that I had been trying to get for 9 months and could not move. My mother said she would meet us there. She said she would be in the parking lot at 7:45. She would take pictures. She would pick Hyra'a up and bring her to her house for the afternoon. I got to the drop-off line that morning at 7:31. Hyra'a had her backpack on. I held her hand walking into the building. I took 11 pictures. I kissed her on the top of her head. I told her I would be back at 3. When I got off the job site at 1:30, I called my mother. She had not gone to the school. Not because she was sick. Not because she forgot. Because, in her words, she had heard things and she had been told by Lavaiza that morning that there had been a discussion and the discussion was that I would not be present at the school for the first day and that my mother should not be present either until she had talked to me about a few things. My mother. Who had raised me. Who had raised Lavaiza. Who had been sitting in that very parking lot for every first day of my life. My mother did not go. She got in the car with Hyra'a at 2:55. She took her home. She gave her a snack. She watched Bluey with her. She told her that her daddy loved her very much and was on a job. She did not tell Hyra'a that her grandmother had been told not to come. 3. In October, Hyra'a broke her arm playing on the monkey bars at recess. The school called me. The school called Candace. The school called my mother. 3 calls. Standard protocol. I was 40 minutes away on a job in Hawaii. I was the first parent at the school at 12:36. I had to leave a job to do it. I lost a $1,000 contract to do it and I would do it again every single time for the rest of my life. My mother was the second parent there. She arrived at 12:47. She had driven from Clarksville. She had been thinking about picking Hyra'a up for the weekend. Lavaiza arrived at 1:04. 11 minutes after my mother. She had been told by Candace. She did not call me to ask if I was on my way. She did not text me to ask how I was feeling about it. She did not call me to ask what the doctor had said. She called me 11 days later on a Wednesday night at 8:42 and said, "Carlton and I want to take Hyra'a for one weekend next month." I said no. She said, "Why?" I said, "Because nobody in this family bothered to call me for 11 days after my daughter broke her arm." She said, "Marcus, you are being dramatic again." I did not reply. This is, I should clarify, not a story about a man who got mad one time. This is a story about a family that slowly walked itself out of the room of a man's life. One phone call at a time. One forgotten invitation at a time. One unreturned text at a time. Until one Saturday in August the only people left in the room were the man himself and a 7-year-old in a pink dress. Now I will take you to the day of Hyraa'S birthday. It was a Saturday. August 17th. For 4 months I had been asking Candace about the party. When is it? Who is hosting it? Where is it? Is it at my mother's house? Is it at the park by Tallulah Falls School? Is it at the pizza place on the square in Clayton? Candace told me at the end of June that Lavaiza had offered to host a small party in their mother's backyard. She told me the date would be August 17th. She told me Hyra wanted a small one this year. 6 kids. A water table. Nothing huge. I asked Candace to put me down for the cake. She said on June 29th that she would. I asked again on July 14th. She said I would. I asked Candace again on July 29th whether my mother had told her the location. She said yes. I asked Candace on August 6th whether I should reach out to Lavaiza or whether she would. She said Lavaiza will. I heard nothing from Lavaiza. I texted my mother on August 9th. Hey mama, do you need anything for Hyra's birthday this year from me? She replied at 6:42 that evening. No. Lavaiza has it. I asked if I should come to the party. She replied. I do not think that would be appropriate right now. I am going to stop here again. I want you to see that. I am going to ask you to read that sentence again. I do not think that would be appropriate right now. My mother. The woman who carried me. The woman who sat with me on the bleachers at soccer practice every Saturday morning for 5 years. My mother told me it would not be appropriate for me to attend my own daughter's birthday party. I sat in my truck in the driveway of my mother's own house. I had driven 12 minutes to ask her that question in person because I wanted to see her face when I asked it. I wanted to see something shift. I wanted her to look at me the way a mother looks at her son when she has done something she is not going to be able to undo. She did not shift. She picked up her coffee and she sipped it and she looked me in the eye and she said, I do not think that would be appropriate right now. I said, what does not appropriate mean? She said, you know what it means. I said, I really do not. She said, Marcus, you have made this hard for everyone. You have not made it easier. You have made it harder. And I am tired. And right now I am tired. And appropriate is, just for a while, going to mean that you give us a minute. I said, okay mama. I left. It was a Sunday. The party was the following Saturday. For 7 days I did not text my mother. For 7 days I did not text Lavaiza. For 7 days I did not call either of them. I worked every day. I went to the job in Franklin Monday through Friday. I came home and I sat on the porch of the shop. I drank sweet tea. I thought. I thought about a lot of things. I thought about when Lavaiza and I were kids and we used to ride our bikes down the dirt road behind the IGA and stop at the little creek that runs under the road bridge and catch tadpoles in mason jars. I thought about the summer my mother finally got the home phone and I would call Lavaiza from my room and she would call me from hers and neither of us had anything to say. I thought about the night Hyra was born and how Lavaiza held her in the hospital and said, I love you, baby. I will never leave you. I meant it too. I do not think she meant to leave Hyra. I think she meant to leave me. And in some version of the family math that the women in my family are very good at, the result is the same. I worked through the week. I did not bother anyone. On Friday night I picked Hyra up for the weekend at 6 like I always did. Candace handed me her overnight bag. She handed me Hyra's hand. She said have fun, baby. She did not say happy birthday. She said have fun. I drove Hyra to my shop. I had set up a small folding table in the bay with a sheet cake from the Publix bakery. Pink. With purple flowers on it. I had also bought 7 balloons from the Dollar Tree. There was a card I had written her that said, Hyra, you are the best thing I ever made. I had bought 7 small presents that I had bought on 4 separate trips to 4 separate Dollar Trees because I did not want her to know she had gotten all of them from one store. We had cake at the shop. Hyra loved it. She smashed her face into the pink icing and then looked up at me with icing on her forehead and said, "Is this a party?" I said, "This is a party." She said, "Where are the other kids?" I said, "They are having parties tomorrow, sweetheart. Tonight this party is just yours." She believed me. She accepted it. She ate 2 pieces. I cried in the back office at 9:17 that night after I put her to bed on the small couch in the back of the shop. I cried because my daughter had asked where the other kids were. I cried because I had known that on Saturday she would be somewhere and I would not be there. I cried because I had spent 5 years showing up and it had not been enough. I cried because a man who shows up is supposed to count for something and I had spent 5 years finding out that in some families showing up is not a number that anybody is keeping anymore. The next morning at 7:42 I called Candace. I said, "Where is the party today?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The party. I know it is today. Where is it?" She said, "Marcus, you are not on the list." I said, "What list?" She said, "The guest list." I am going to stop for a moment. I want you to understand what I felt when she said that. Because the way a woman says the word list in that sentence is the way a teacher says it when a child is not picked for the kickball team. It is not angry. It is not mean. It is just factual. The way the weather is factual. The way a Tuesday is factual. I said, "I am Hyraa'S father." She said, "I know, Marcus. I know." I said, "Why am I not on the list?" She said, "There was a discussion." The discussion was led by Lavaiza. The discussion was supported by your mother and by your aunt and by Carlton's mother who is also on the list because she has been on the list for 2 years. The discussion was that we should not make a difficult day more difficult by including everybody in the room by default. Now I am going to be honest with you. I do not know whether I am a fair judge of my ex-wife. I do not think the law of the land is to ask a man who has been divorced for 5 years whether he is a fair judge of his ex-wife. I do not think anybody could be. I think it is a question that does not have a clean answer. But I will tell you what Candace said happens, the way I heard it, while standing in my kitchen holding a coffee I had poured for myself at 7:42 on the morning of my daughter's 7th birthday. She said the discussion was that I would arrive and I would not know where to sit. She said the discussion was that I would bring Hyra'a a gift that did not match the rest of the gifts. She said the discussion was that I would try to give a speech. She said the discussion was that I would make the day about me. I did not raise my voice. I said, "Candace, I have not been to a single Hyra'a event in 2 years that I have not been on the list for. I have not missed it. I have not made a scene. I have not given a single speech. I drove Hyra'a to her first day of 1st grade and I did not go inside because you asked me not to. I did not give a single speech at her dance recital at the Tallulah Falls School Auditorium in May. I sat in the back. I clapped. I left. I have done every single thing you have asked me to do for 2 years and it has not been enough to get me a chair at her birthday." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Marcus, I will tell you the address. But you should be prepared for it not to go well." I said, "I appreciate that." She said, "Do not tell them I told you." I did not promise. But I did not tell them. I set Hyra'a down at the kitchen table with her breakfast. I gave her the toy train she had been saving her allowance for. I said, "Do you want to do something fun today, baby?" She said, "Am I going to a party?" I said, "Yes, sweetheart, we are going to a party." She said, "The one at Grammy's house?" I said, "No, sweet girl, it was moved." She asked why. I said because the cabin is more fun. She did not argue. She did not know enough about parties to know that fathers do not usually find out where their daughter's birthday is by calling them 1 hour before. I drove. The GPS took me up 17 minutes of mountain road. I did not call anyone. I did not text anyone. I did not warn anyone. I did not do it to make a scene. I did not do it for revenge. I did not do it to teach anyone a lesson. I drove up that mountain because there is a girl in the back seat of my truck who just turned 7 and who should not have to find out that her father was not on a list. We turned into the gravel drive. I saw the balloons first. Pink and purple. Tied to the mailbox post at the end of the drive. Then I saw the cabin. The little deck at the front. The folding chairs. The small table with the cake. The paper plates. The cooler with the juice boxes. The portable speaker playing something tinny and low. There were 11 kids running around the yard. There were 11 parents in lawn chairs. There was a handmade sign taped to one of the chairs that read Hyraa'S, turning 7. There were 14 chairs, only 12 of them were filled. 2 were empty. They were for Hyraa'S and her father. I parked the truck at the end of the drive. I did not turn the engine off. I did not get out. I sat there and I looked through the windshield at the small scene happening at the cabin. Hyraa'S cousin Sophia was chasing 2 of the kids around the corner. Carlton was holding a plate of cake. Carlton's mother Brenda was standing next to a folding chair in a wide hat and sunglasses. My mother was at the cooler. My Aunt Diane was talking to a woman I did not recognize. Lavaiza was standing on the porch. The laughter stopped. That is what I will remember most about that moment. The laughter stopped when I shut my door. The kids heard it first. One of the smaller ones turned around. Then the next one. Then the next one. There is something about a door slamming in a quiet mountain place that carries further than a door slamming in a city. It carries all the way across the yard. It carries all the way into the kitchen where my mother was pouring a cup of punch. It carries all the way into the bones of the woman on the porch whose hands were folded. Hyraa'S ran. That is what I already told you. She ran. In her pink dress. In her pink shoes. Across the gravel, toward the truck she had been in 1,000 times, her arms wide open, her hair swinging, her eyes bright. She ran to me. She did not run to her mother. She did not run to her cousin. She did not run to her grandmother. She did not run to the cooler with the juice boxes. She did not run to the cake. She ran to me. I picked her up. I held her. She said, "Daddy." She said, "You came." I said, "I came." She said, "I knew you would come." I want you to sit with that last sentence for a moment. She said, "I knew you would come." Because in the mind of a 7-year-old, there was no version of today that did not include me. There was no list. There was no discussion. There was no folded hands on a porch. There was only her and her father and the fact that she knew I would come even when I had not been invited. Lavaiza was still on the porch. I walked toward her. Hyraa'S was in my arms. Hyraa'S was not looking at anybody else. Lavaiza took a step forward. She tried to take Hyraa'S. She said, "Baby, come here, Mama Lava has been waiting for you." Hyraa'S held on to me tighter. Hyraa'S said, "I want to stay with Daddy." Lavaiza looked at me. I looked at Lavaiza. I said, "Is this your party?" She said, "Yes." I said, "You did not tell me about it." She said, "Marcus, I asked Mama to talk to you because I needed to handle this without an argument." I said, "Without an argument?" Lavaiza, you did not even invite me. There is no argument to have. There is nothing to argue about. You just did not invite me. That is what you did. She said, "It was not like that." I said, "What was it like?" She was quiet. My mother came off the porch. She was carrying a paper plate. She was supposed to be bringing the plate to me. Lavaiza had decided, I am guessing, that they could give me a paper plate and I would sit down in one of the empty chairs and we would all pretend this had not happened. That is the version of the family I come from. Do not address it. Bring the man a plate. Make the man a chair. Hand him a fork. Pass him punch. Do not say a single word about what you have done, because if you do not say the word out loud, then the word does not exist. That is the family I come from. My mother handed me the plate. She did not look at me. She looked at Hyra. She said, "Baby, Grammy is so glad you are here. Happy birthday." Hyra said, "Thank you, Grammy." Hyra did not understand what was happening. I held the plate in one hand. Hyra was in the other. I looked at my sister. I said, "Lavaiza, I am not here to take this party from you. I am not here to make this day hard for Hyra. I am not here to make this day hard for anybody. But I am not going to pretend I am glad because some of the people in this world who should have invited me decided I was not appropriate." I set the plate on the porch railing. I did not take a bite. I said, "Hyra has a party she is supposed to have today. I want her to have it. So here is what we are going to do. You keep doing what you are doing. The other kids will keep playing. The cake will keep being cut. And I am going to sit in one of those 2 empty chairs with my daughter, and I am going to let her have her day. And we are going to leave when it makes sense for us to leave. And nobody is going to talk about a list or a discussion or a chair, because that is not what this day is about. This day is about her." Lavaiza looked at my mother. My mother looked at the ground. I walked to one of the 2 empty chairs. I sat down. I set Hyra on my lap. She was watching 2 of her friends play tag near the cooler. A few of the parents looked at me. A few of them did not. Carlton walked over with a juice box for Hyra. He tried to be helpful. He is not a bad man. He is just a man who has been told what to think about his brother-in-law and has not thought about it himself. Hyra took the juice box. She said, "Thank you, Mr. Carlton." Carlton said, "You are very welcome, sweet girl." He looked at me. I said, "Thank you, Carlton." He said, "Yeah." That was it. The party played out. The cake was cut. Hyra got her slice. She ate it on my lap. She got frosting on her dress. She did not care. Her cousin sat on the ground next to her and played the little game of guessing how many sprinkles were on top. I do not know if Lavaiza and my mother had been planning to bring things to a head that afternoon. I think they had. I think the empty chairs had been part of the story they had been telling themselves. I think the chair was supposed to be a message. I think there was supposed to be a quiet apology from me. I think there was supposed to be a soft conversation. There was not. I sat in the chair. I held my daughter. I let her open her presents. She got a small art kit from Candace. She got a book from her mother. She got a hair bow from my Aunt Diane. She got a kite from Carlton and Brenda. She got a stuffed rabbit from Lavaiza. I noticed the rabbit was the same brand of rabbit that Lavaiza had sewn for Hyra from scratch when Hyra was a baby. I do not know if that was intentional. I am not going to ask. My present to Hyra was the small leather bag I had bought her from a man in Helen who sold them out of his truck at the farmer's market. She had told me in July that she wanted a bag for her collection of shells she had been picking up at the lake. She did not know I had remembered. When she opened it, she did not understand at first. She looked at the bag. She looked at me. Then she put her hand over her mouth and said, "It is for my shells." I said, "It is for your shells." She put the bag over her shoulder. She wore it for the rest of the party. I do not know what that means to the rest of my family. I know what it means to me. I know what it means to my daughter. I sat with her for 3 hours. We did the photo with the cousins. We did the photo with the cake. We did the photo with the rabbit. We did the photo with my mother. We did the photo with Lavaiza. We did all of the photos and Hyra sat on my lap for every one of them. I did not give a speech. The discussion Candace had told me would happen, about the speech, did not happen. I did not bring a different cake. I did not bring a different gift. I did not bring anything that did not fit. I did not raise my voice. I did not fight with anybody. I said thank you when I was handed a juice box. I said happy birthday to the other 7-year-olds. I held Hyraa'S hand while we cut the cake. I let her eat her dessert slowly. I let her play. I let her get tired. I let her take off her shoes when her feet hurt. I sat in the chair I had not been invited into. The chair that had been supposed to stay empty. I sat in that chair for 3 hours of my daughter's 7th birthday because she asked me where the other kids were and I had answered her. When it was time to leave, I told Hyraa'S to bring the rabbit and the bag and the art kit. She did. I told her to say goodbye. She hugged her cousin Sophia. She hugged her mother. She hugged Carlton. She hugged Carlton's mother Brenda. She hugged her Aunt Diane. She hugged Lavaiza. She hugged my mother. Then she came back to me. She took my hand. She said, "Can we go home now, Daddy?" I said, "Yes, baby." We walked to my truck. I opened her door. I buckled her in. I got in. Before I started the engine I looked back at the porch. Lavaiza was standing with her hands folded. My mother was standing next to her. Neither of them was smiling. Neither of them was crying. Neither of them was waving. They were just standing there. This is what I want to say to my sister. Because she may hear this someday. Because my mother may hear this someday. Because somebody in the family may hear this someday and forward it to somebody else. You did not invite me. That is the thing you did. There is no other version. There is no argument about it. There is no list, there was no discussion, there was no chair, there was no reason that makes it okay. You did not invite your brother to his only daughter's 7th birthday party. And the reason you did not do it is that you have been building a small quiet story about me in your head for 5 years and you have decided that I am not a fit enough father for it to count. And I am here to tell you, sister, that the small quiet story you are building is wrong. It has been wrong since the day you decided it. The man in that chair loved his daughter enough to show up uninvited. The man in that chair did not raise his voice once. The man in that chair let the kid eat her cake. What did you do? You did not text me. You did not pick up the phone. You did not ask any of the women who told you their version of me what they were actually telling you. You did not ask my daughter if her father was the man you had decided he was. You did not come by the shop on a Tuesday and ask me how things were going. You did not ask my mother how things were with her son. You decided, and then you stopped showing up. And the worst part is not that you stopped showing up for me. The worst part is that you stopped showing up for Hyraa'S. Because the version of this story that I will be telling my daughter when she is old enough to ask why some birthdays were different from other birthdays, the version I will be telling is not the version that puts me in the best light. The version I will be telling is the truth. And the truth is that there were people in her family who loved her enough to throw her a party with 14 chairs and a special sign and a rabbit they had sewn for her when she was a baby. And one of those people did not think that her father was a person who needed to be in the room. And they were wrong about that. And my daughter is going to grow up knowing they were wrong. Because her father walked in uninvited and held her while she ate her cake and took her home when she was ready. I drove down the mountain with Hyraa'S in the back seat. The sun was just starting to set behind the trees. There was warm light on the road and Hyraa'S was watching it through the window. She had her new bag on her shoulder. She had her rabbit next to her. She had her bluebird pin from last year on the dress. After about 3 minutes she said, "Daddy." "Yeah, sweetheart." "Why were there 2 empty chairs?" I was quiet for a moment. "Because they thought you were going to bring a friend," I said. "But I told them I was your friend, so we did not need them." She considered that. She nodded. She said, "Okay. That is what I am going to tell people when they ask me about this day." I am going to tell them I told her there were 2 chairs because they thought she was bringing a friend, but I told them I was her friend. And for 7 years that has been the truth. I am Marcus Hale. I am 38 years old. I am a framing contractor out of Clayton, Georgia. I have a daughter named Hyra who turned 7 on August 17th, and she did not know her father had not been invited. She knew only that there were 2 chairs. I told her they were for her and her friend. I did not give a speech the day of. I did not make a scene. I did not raise my voice at my family in front of any of the children. I did the smallest thing I could think of to teach my daughter that being uninvited is not a reason not to show up. I sat in the chair. I held her hand. I drove her home. And for 7 minutes, while the sun was going down behind the trees on Old Highway 441, my daughter was the only child in the world who did not know there had ever been a list to be on. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment below. Have you ever been the person in the room that somebody decided not to invite? What did you do about it? And if you have ever been on the other side, what made you decide not to invite them? Because that is the half of the story I do not know. I would like to know. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. We tell real family stories here, and we are just getting started. And if you have a story you would like to share, send me a message through the link in the description. Take care of yourselves. And tell the people in your family that you love them. Now, not later. Now. Before somebody in your family decides that appropriate is going to mean something different to everybody in the room.